All right, so I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think this book is freaking awesome. Welcome, Wargamers. Doug here from 2 Plus Tough, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Seasons of War Thondia book, which is sort of, I guess, the first of a new set of campaign books, taking little parts of the Mortal Realms and allowing you and I as gamers to play in them. It has things for open play, narrative play, different kinds of narrative play, that's important to note, and matched play, because if you want to have a group run through the Thondia thing, there are matched play rules for it. And I know that the thumbnail for this video is a bit more clickbaity than I normally do, but here's the truth. What I'm going to do in this video, rather than read the book to you, because there are plenty of content creators that will do that, I'm going to tell you why this is so impactful to me as a hobbyist, as someone who looks at this and sees it as a rekindling of what attracted me to the hobby in the first place, specifically like White Dwarf magazine type things, where there's ways of telling a story, bringing people in, all different modes of play, all these kinds of things. It appeals to so many people. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. I'll go to the downward cam. What I want to say here really quickly, though, is big thank you to Games Workshop for sending me an early copy. It really meant a lot to me. And also, if you would like to pick up your own and you want to get a little discount for it, Noble Knight Games, which is in the description down below, saves you some coin on all Games Workshop products, and using that link supports me as a content creator, because just getting the product doesn't pay my bills. So thank you all so much for that. Let's go to the downward cam and check this guy out. So the way I kind of broadly want to talk about this book is just to picture it as a return to form for Games Workshop. Here's what I mean. The last campaign book that I thoroughly enjoyed, I mean, like, for the sake of its own self-complete story, was Wrath of the Everchosen. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked the breakdown of military movements. I liked all of that. Seasons of War Thondia is, as you might have guessed, a book that takes a specific place, in this case the continent of Thondia, and really lets us dive into it as a setting. Okay, more so than I think any other like realm rules or anything like that have allowed us to do for AOS up until now. Up top, you're going to find a whole bunch of lore. There are quite a few things here that I think are noteworthy. When I mentioned earlier that it reminds me of some of the White Dwarf magazines, here's what I mean. So you have an introduction to the setting. We have a timeline, and these are not necessarily all unique things to this book. A lot of this has been shared in other battle tomes or other campaign supplements, but it's anything pertaining to Thondia. So it's actually a cool little resource. Even if you're not a lore person, you can get kind of caught up on what's going on. You have a map of the region, Herpa. And this is what I meant. I'm sorry. I forgot there were so many pages in between, but I remember White Dwarf magazine was so fun because it would give you a battle report and there'd be like an after-action letter written by some character in that battle report. At least they did it a few times, maybe not all the time. But it was this idea of, okay, we did the game, how do I recondense this into a story? These are a composition of letters from all different factions. So they've introduced the setting, giving you a map, and told you kind of the drama that's going on. And so this is all these different factions' takes on what's happening. We have, what is this? This is a Karajan Overlord, a Skaven Tyrant. No, sorry, it's a Butcher. But Ogre Maw tribes. Sigmarite Stronghold, so Cities of Sigmar. That is Lumineth Realm Lords, and this is Vampires, an Agent of New Lamia. So you're getting not just the informational aspects, like the info dump, if you will, but also just how these characters feel and perceive what's going on, and putting, I guess what I'm trying to say is what that does is it makes Thondia much more than a bit of information that you would read on a wiki. It makes it a firmly entrenched place in the setting. I love that kind of stuff. We flip the page, we have the Coast of Tusks. This is the literal coast that Excelsis is on, so it's kind of a zoomed in bit of the map there, which I think is nice. It's just honestly. It's just kind of nice to be able to zoom in. I wish for a lot of the other maps that they had like this, it's beautiful, but there's just regions where you just wish you could zoom in a bit. And especially knowing how important that one is. This section is nice because if you look on the page before it, and I think there's some regarding that big map, essentially there's places named that there's no other information for. They exist as a name only. However, if you go to Savage Landmarks, these specific things like the Drowned Lands, I don't quite remember where that one was, but basically they kind of fill in the story for the various locations here. The Spine Range, Ymnog's Trample, the Gnarlwood. I feel like I saw the Gnarlwood recently. Where's that one at? Oh yeah, right there. So you can see it's just instead of just these little one-sentence blurbs, which we've had before on maps, it's taking the time to actually fill out information about them. Starting on page 22 and onward for a bit, there's actually a narrative to this thing. I'm not going to spoil it because I want to go into it deep in a actual lore video, but essentially it picks up where the Amberstone Watch story left off. If you're not familiar, Amberstone Watch, that story comes from the Dominion box set. It features cruel boys trying to poison an area where a whole bunch of ley lines meet. The idea is they can poison Gur, and Gur will get so mad as a realm, or Thondia rather, not Gur, but this continent will become so sick that it will essentially shutter off Excelsis. And that's their way of destroying the city. Don't even besiege it, poison the earth underneath it, and watch it just kind of sink off to the ocean. And so there are consequences for what happened. We kind of get a recap of how successful the Cruel Boys were in that endeavor. And of course, Andrasta, is that her name? Features heavily in it. I keep getting her name. Okay, Andrasta, yes. For some reason, her and Iniad from 40k, the names just interchange in my brain. There's quite a few pages of lore dedicated to that. They bring in some bone splitters and some beasts of chaos, and ultimately we are introduced to this book's new thing, which is the incarnates. We've seen the model. Right now it's part of a terrain bundle that I am not happy about. It's fine. I just wish there was a box that was separate, that was like just the new stuff. That's all. Story continues. Like I said, there's quite a bit. There is a plot line that goes through this, and I love it. Or love that it's there. And then we're introduced to something that I think needed to exist, and it's needed to exist for a long time. This is essentially a bestiary. Again, it's more letters of Cities of Sigmar folks messaging back to their leaders, back at home. And it's just scribbles about the various beasts that they're encountering, which, of course, are beasts that exist just about everywhere. Everything from Bulgors, Frost Sabers, the Cockatrice, we got Stegodon, Carnosaurs, Fellwater Troggoths, Jabberslights, some new stuff, the Thondian Flathorn, which is this derpy-looking guy, and I love him. The Corpse Ripavulcha, Itcher Moss, which shows a guy's hand getting, in real time bacterial eaten. That's cool. Growl Oaks, Barbed Snifferweed Spheres, which just all look like giant purple suns. Maybe they'll repurpose that kid as just a plant. And Terror Pins. There we go. Sort of looks like a croc / insectoid thing. This is important to me because this is, again, stuff that you would find in a White Dwarf magazine. They would add these little things that just fill out a world. Everything from hey, why is that ammo cherub exist in 40k? What's the origin of the Lehman Russ? Give me a breakdown of some of the vehicles of Eldar from an Imperial perspective. This is what I mean. It is a thing that harkens back to a lot of the little things that make White Dwarf magazine so great. And as that's the way that I got into the game and just seeing the cool visuals, it's an attractive idea. So I hope that kind of makes my point. I'm not BSing you when I say that I am very excited about this. I believe that the content of the book up till this point, and if you're just listening in, I just got to the rules page. So all the lore, the background stuff, my thought is it firmly places the setting of the story in Thondia, which is exactly what this book is supposed to do. Okay, so you know, it might not have the rules changes that you want. It might not be sold the way you want, meaning this guy here in a box full of terrain that nobody seems to want online. But rather, story-wise, it allows you to create a very, very distinct narrative, very detailed actually, because I recently did a video talking about making your own campaigns, and like between the maps, the bestiary, the letters back home, there's ample opportunity to create really meaningful stories with those things, just with the first 50? Less than 50, because that also includes some of the other stuff, pages of lore. So on that front, I think it's a slam dunk. But let's start talking about rules. Okay, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of, you know, do I think the realm incarnate is going to be like a competitive thing? That's not my jam, let's be honest. To put it very simply, for folks who just want a surface level, you essentially bond this thing to a hero. Okay, he is 400 points. Boom, he's a behemoth, a single unit, unique, can't be taken multiples, that's kind of important. He gets his own monstrous rampage. My understanding is he can use any of them in addition to this one, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't, like I said, I'm not a rules guy. This is not the most interesting part. And he's low on my docket because I don't want to buy that terrain box. As far as his abilities, it's just a nasty monster. It's a nasty, nasty monster, and very cool. He kind of is somewhere between an endless spell and a monster, so to speak. As for realm rules, this is going to matter for any format that you play in. Again, there are match play rules, open play, and narrative play in this book. So if you want to have a match play event set in Thondia, you can absolutely do that. They have their own unique mysterious terrain, which, you know, honestly, I don't really care for mysterious terrain, but yeah, it's a way certainly to make the game feel like you're centered in a very specific location, for sure. You get spell Metamorphosis. Basically nothing super unique there. We already have this from our current GHB where you can make something a monster, make a hero a monster that's not. You get a new realm command. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. There's monsters that can rove around the earth. And then we get to the open play stuff. I'll be honest, I often kind of overlook open play. I'm getting into it more and more now as I'm trying to make my own missions, and there's a lot of resources there for that. But it's certainly not my first jam that I would jump to. But it does seem cool. There's all kinds of stuff. Twist. This is kind of how the Warcry mission sets up preemptive deployment, what the mission is, twist, ruse, and Arcane Prize, I think, is its own jam. But let's talk narrative play. As you know, I am a colossal fan of Path to Glory. It is my favorite way to play Age of Sigmar. Don't worry about battle tactics, just have some fun, clash it out, and tell a story over time. So here's what this book brings to Path to Glory. First and foremost, it introduces a concept that existed, but we never actually understood, and that is outposts. If you're looking at the core book for building your roster, you'll see that you can buy outposts, or it's listed on the sheet, but since 3.0 launched, we've never seen a single outpost thing that we could buy. What does it mean? What does it do? I'll tell you. Essentially, an outpost tethers your faction to a location. That is to say, as long as you have an outpost in Thondia, you pay the points to add an outpost to your roster set in Thondia, you have access to some of the special, unique, location-based things in this book. Give you an example, there are Thondia veteran abilities, quests, territories, prime monsters. You can only get those things permanently affixed to your order of battle. I'm sorry, I know that's blanking on me. If you have an outpost in Thondia. Now, you can take that army and go somewhere else afterwards, but as long you have to maintain the outpost to get the options. Here's why I love this. It essentially means you can create veterans from various combats. Like, let's say they come out with, Seasons of War Evergreen Swath, right? That's the place in Giran, very heavily focused on lore-wise. having veterans of Thondia move to the Everspring swath, just like having veterans go from one battlefield to another in real life, they're different. They're different sets of skills. They will have different abilities that they can spring on you. And that just makes it so cool that if you are playing Path to Glory for a long time, you might have all these things. And you might have outposts in multiple places. There are limits on outposts, I believe, in terms of the number that you can have at any given time, depending on the size of your base. But, you can just take that army and keep spreading. So I think that's really cool. Please let me know your thoughts on that specifically. But in terms of allowing us to not only take an army over time, which is what Path to Glory is, but also to give them a little slice of theme and abilities that they would only get by being veterans of various combats and wars. I love it. I don't know if I want to wait for an entire book to come out every time. I kind of want a whole bunch for different realms right now. But as a concept, I think that is a fantastic use of this book, is just adding flavor to your Path to Glory roster that you can take anywhere. So you can establish an outpost. You have a quest. One is to get an incarnate. And one where this is important, essentially behind this section is a build your own hero, and there's a quest to recruit said hero. So that's nice. Those two are very interesting to me. Veteran abilities. I'm going to do a Path to Glory dedicated video. This is more about the book in totality, but I will be going through those because I like it for my Path to Glory season. It also offers this new concept called scouting expeditions. Blah, blah, blah. In step 3 of the Aftermath sequence, you can pick one unit in your order of battle that was not included in your army, send it on a scouting expedition. This is great because some units, if you have them on your roster and they're just sitting there, they don't do anything for you, so give them something to do. And it can essentially, you're going to roll on the expedition roll. Boom, there you go. And you just follow what it says. So on a 2-up, the expedition is a failure. I'm just picking one randomly. On a 1, the scouts come across a rampaging gargant. Roll the dice again. On a 1 through 5, you must increase your scout unit's casualty score by D3. On a 6 of that initial roll, the scout unit slays the gargant and earns D3 renown. You can make all kinds of side stories. One of the most fun things I heard was someone taking like a unit of sneaky snufflers or something like that for Gloomspite Gits, and just having them do this, or recruiting the Underworld's Warband because you have the glory points, and just sending them out for this random stuff that it's not a game, you don't need it to be good, but you can just make these super funny stories about how like Headcracker led his mad mob and they got crushed by a frickin' gargant, and then one time they covered this mountain, and one time they broke into a storm vault, and you can make these fun little mini stories. I just thought that was really cool. Moving on, we have some missions. Thank you. This is what I've been waiting on for forever. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into them. I'll save that for later, but you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is kind of the magic number. And to kind of give you a sense of what these are about, I'll just do that real quick. Show of Strength is a typical 2 armies hunting. This is a hunter and quarry, which is an interesting idea. You have the bait in the center, and the person you're hunting is trying to surround you. Close the jaws. One side is trying to escape, so that'll work into some narratives depending on what story you're trying to tell. And the Beast's Lair, which you're trying to hunt monsters, I believe is this one. One of those is you're just trying to hunt. 2 armies converge on the lair of the monstrous denizens of Gur. Each side wants to slay the creature in order to be able to carve up the prodigious body for valuable resources. Okay. Open the vault. Pretty self-explanatory. And defend a settlement. So these are just some great depictions of different types of stories that you can tell. And again, when it comes to Path to Glory, tell the story you want in your head and then choose a mission based on that. That fits it the best, I think, is kind of the way to go. And there's just, the more options they have for like story avenues, the more freedom that you have as a player to tell the specific story you want. Then we come to the Anvil of Apotheosis, Grr, specifically, and I'm curious as to why that's specific to Grr, but here we go. This functions a lot like the Anvil of Apotheoses that we saw in the White Dwarf magazines. It is compiled. I assumed it would be kind of the same, but tuned up a bit. And so there are some things that I think they cleaned up quite a bit in terms of just the displaying what armies they are able to be a part of, what race they are. Of course, you're going to choose the destiny point limit. That's kind of depend on what kind of hero you want. So you could do 20, which is typically like a foot soldier. Think Wargog Prophet, Stormcast hero on foot, that kind of thing. A conqueror, which is 40, and that's typically going to go into something that has a mount, like a large mount, more so than just riding a pig or a boar or horse or something. And then there's the hero quest, which is number of destiny points recorded on the quest log. So that's regarding the quest that I talked about that allows you to take this guy into your order of battle, rather. So ancestries, literally just what are you, right? We have elves, Bulgors, Death Mage, all that kind of stuff. Interesting that they made a distinction between Bone Splitter Orcs and Iron Jaws, but they're all here. I'll rattle these off just in case you are curious and just listening while you paint. Elf, Bulgor, Death Mage, Duarden, Grot, Bone Splitter Orc, Demon, Dragon Ogre, Gore, Human, Iron Jaws Orc, Mordant, Ogre, Saurus, Cruel Boys Orc, Malignant, Mortal, so that's going to be your Chaos ones, so you can put the deity there. Ossiarch Bone Reapers, Skaven, Skeleton, Skinks, Stormcast Eternals, Vampire, and Sylvaneth. So yeah. Yep, Deepkin can be the elves. Then you go to the next step, and you basically, if you're not familiar with how this works, up here in the top right corner is the points cost for that specific archetype, if you will. So if I was doing, we'll keep playing around with this, Bone Splitters Orc, it's the army I'm working on right now. I have to pay 3 points, and then this is my guy's basic stat line. 5-inch move, 6 up save, 7 bravery, and 5 wounds. And he has the Bone Splitters keyword, and so he will be able to work, with all the Allegiance abilities and stuff. Then you move on to the armory. Follow the rules here for equipping. There are things that don't work, like it'll say like restrictions, no Malignant, because you can't have a Night Haunt with a shield, apparently. Then you go into archetype, which is, there's only 3. You have a commander, think warrior, an acolyte, who's a priest, and a mage, who's a wizard, of course. So you can kind of design your way there. There's a few different ways to go with beasts. You could have a minor beast, which is sort of like my Wargog Prophet. He has a squig that attacks people at his feet, or a Gryph-hound at the bottom of a Lord Imperatant, going around his base. A mounted beast, so you're thinking horse riders, Vandis, whatever he's riding. And then you have gargantuan beasts, which are those are going to be your super big ones. Guy riding dragon. Yeah, so you get the idea. Beyond that, you can also kit out your beastie. All of those things, destiny points, is that what they're called? It costs money. So the point total that you chose, either 20 or 40, you're taking from that pool. Is it 100% balanced? Honestly, it's not bad. Like, I went through and I tried to make something super broken, but I don't know. They don't have a whole lot of force multipliers, so even if you make a super BA hero, it's still just one hero. There are stuff, like there's some pretty cool spells, and prayers, but like that's not outside the norm of any particular faction having access to cool spells or a priest. So I didn't personally think anything was overtly busted. Yes, and then we get into the Summons to War Battle Pack, which is a cool thing. The following battle pack contains rules, war scroll battalions, and battle plans that allow you to recreate the battles described in the narrative section of this book. So this battle pack is kind of meant to represent the story elements that I talked about before. Okay, so it is a small campaign. It specifically says campaign right there. And it has you loosely making armies that are thematically relevant to the story they told earlier. So we have, this is narrative battalions, which kind of went the wayside when the new edition dropped. But essentially, if you're just new to it, you fill out the requirements of this and you get a little bonus. That's it. Then they're just meant to kind of curate what forces were meant to be played, for these specific narrative battles. I like this a lot more than the Broken Realms campaign books that had very specific forces. Like, it would be like, you have 2 10-man squads of Sisters of Slaughter, this particular hero, this particular thing, and it would just like be very, very detailed. But to me, the idea of battalions, I think having that little bit of loosey-goosey for list building, I think is probably a lot better. For example, I'll go straight to the Bone Split as one, because why wouldn't I? Wargog Prophet, of course. 2 to 5 War Docs or Savage Big Bosses in any combination. 2 to 5 Savage Orc More Boys, Boar Boy Maniacs, Big Stabbas, or Savage Orc Arrow Boys in any combination. It's making the Cop Ruck from previous versions of the book. So, I like that there are some bits of flexibility, some more than others for sure. I feel like the Stormcast one is pretty narrow, where it's like 1 Vanguard Palador unit, 0 to 2 Vanguard Hunters, 0 to 1 Ether Wings, and all units have to be Astral Templars. Like, that's obviously very specific, but it's still less restrictive than the exact number of units you need to have for everything. Now, for this, they've also included missions that are meant to help you represent the story that they told. Keep in mind, there's no reason you can't use these in Path to Glory. Like, even though these are meant to represent a specific story thing, if you think you can use these to tell a different story, just do it. Absolutely. But it'll have stuff like Desnorters and the Incarnate. Okay, well, that would be the Bone Splitters player. Like, so it's meant to help guide you through a specific story, but there's no reason you can't just do whatever you want. And lastly, we have the matched play section. Like I said, this thing has stuff for everybody. It goes through the normal things about what you can take. You can include core battalions, but not war scroll battalions, so none of that other stuff is applicable. This is matched play. And what it goes through, let me see here. Yeah, so you get some new core battalions to kind of match what they're going for. And this is honestly Hunters of the Heartlands, Monstrous Kill Pack. Those things already exist. Some grand strategies that are relevant. Battle tactics as well. Where is it at? Yes, okay, here we go. So it walks you through what's called the Strife in Thondia, which I think I may have accidentally passed. Yes, okay, sorry about that. So the whole match play section is called Strife in Thondia. This is probably my favorite thing about this book, more so than the Path to Glory, because to me, getting that divide between competitive players and narrative ones to diminish, meaning bring the two closer together, I think is ideally the goal. Because if you're a competitive player, you like going to events, it doesn't mean you don't like the lore, it doesn't mean you don't like the flavor or the wackiness of some factions. And vice versa, if you like telling stories, it doesn't mean you're a bad player and that you just take what sucks. But what this does is kind of gives you a framework of how do we turn pseudo-narrative games, but it's pseudo-narrative in the sense that you are playing in Thondia. That happens on top of this. But how do we do that with that little bit of flavor, but still maintain some kind of edge to determine a winner that isn't just based on someone's, personal fan lore. So it's a cool way to do it. Essentially, all you need to do is put your name, the points limits, the faction, and then for each battle plan that comes up behind this, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. You're going to tally number of battle tactics completed, grand strategy completed, yes or no. Have you won the battle? Did you draw? And then campaign victory points. And so that's all calculated otherwise. Here's your little cheat sheet for that. Per battle completed, grand strategy completed. You and your group just walk through the games. Like, it's so easy. You could do this in a weekend if you wanted to do a 2-day event. You could split it up to 2 or 3 game nights. Maybe in a month you could take this all down. Like, by take it down, I mean do all these missions at least once. And yeah, and then you can basically, and there's like a check thing right there where you can get your opponent's name and their victory points. But like, that's a really cool thing. Of course, all the missions here are going to be somewhat thematic in that they do throw in extra rules. We have like Dominant Warlord, the Raiders, all kinds of little additions, but they're all specific. They're all meant to be telling a Thondia story, but in a way that both players have a chance, right? They're not totally asymmetrical. Symmetrical rather. Like, this is the last 2. Yeah, just the last 2 are not, but those also kind of, frankly, make them more interesting. This is the kind of thing that I see as a great gateway to introduce very competitive focused people into narrative play. And honestly, vice versa. Like, when you see missions like this, where they're totally symmetrical, it's easy to be like, okay, it's a competitive mission, right? Because that's typically the hallmark of competitive missions, is that everything's kind of the same. It's equal on both sides. When you introduce this, but you still have things like battle tactics and grand strategies and all these little things that go into making a game competitive, and that you can snatch victory points from wherever you need to, like, that's just terrific. It really is. Conversely, if you love, narrative focused things, it also is good to introduce you, like, this is how you play a symmetrical game. And also, here's how you score an event. Or like, hopefully getting that itch for scoring, basically. If you come in third, you're gonna be like, yeah. If you come in first, you're gonna feel like a rock star. But this is what I'm saying, and I'll kind of go back up to the upward cam here to finish out my thoughts. When I look back at some of the old White Dwarf magazines that I have on my shelf, and I love looking at them, a couple of things really stand out to me. One, no matter what kind of player you are, there's something in there for you. They would have battle reports from old editions of 40k and Age of Sigmar, or not Age of Sigmar, Warhammer Fantasy Battles, where the people playing would introduce their army and kind of like a little bit of the backstory. Some were more flavorful and narrative focused. You could tell some of them were much more competitive focused. That was totally fine. But these two people could stand there and have a great game and then recap after it how it told the story. When I look at this, you immediately have things for narrative players, of course. The Path of Glory section is really cool, and it unlocks the things that we've been anxiously waiting to see for some time. Yes, you can make your own hero. I like it. I like that they actually branch those things together and that you have to complete a quest to unlock the hero. That's nice. But then when it comes to the match play thing, what a fantastic way to introduce to your local group a different way to play that still hits all the same gears that they know and love, meaning battle tactics, grand strategies, even points, that kind of stuff, like the things that are typically sticking points when it comes to getting competitive folks to try narrative things, but doing it in a very cool way where it's like, there's only 5 missions. There's 5. Like, it doesn't require a massive investment. It's not this campaign that lasts for months and months and months. It's a way to introduce something fun and new to a bunch of people very succinctly. Like, my only complaint about the book has nothing to do with the book. It's just that all the rules for the incarnate are here, and the incarnate is in a box that is with a whole bunch of terrain. But, I mean, that's been done to death on the internet. I'm not going to keep complaining about it. As far as the product itself, like the book, they could release one of these every single week and I would buy every one of them and I would love them. This is the kind of stuff that I'm here for. It has less, if I had to compare it, it has less moment by moment of tracking armies than Wrath of the Everchosen did, which is something I really enjoyed about that book. But in terms of giving me a firm setting to be able to write stories and read them, because at some point we are getting more stories for the era of the beast, Thondia will matter. And now we have a lot more context for what those games will look like, how maybe rules-wise a designer is trying to articulate a concept in the lore. Again, now we have the lore, we have some rules that will allow us, so when we read stuff in books like Black Library novels, we can figure out how to put that on the tabletop. That's awesome. So when I made that original statement of like, this is the best, like Games Workshop, do more of this. Stop putting out the same army battle tome over and over again. Slanesh. Don't gate wall it behind, you know, a whole bunch of terrain set that people don't like. If you just do this, people will love it. It's succinct. It's tiny, you know, in terms of like, it's not as dense as, say, the Space Marine Battle Tome, but it introduces you to a really cool part of the Mortal Realms, has something for every kind of player, and quite frankly, even if you're not a lore buff, I was reading off some of the animal entries, like the bestiary type things to my wife, and it's just entertaining. Like, it's just so stinking fun. And so I really do hope that you like this. Again, you can consider this a biased review. They did send it to me. I was going to buy it the millisecond it was available anyway. And I would be more than happy to do that again because this thing is freaking dope. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you all so much for watching and hanging out. I will, like I said, be doing a in-depth review of the Path to Glory section here for in the style that I normally do those, where I literally do read things and kind of compress it a bit. I'll be doing that as well as a series of lore videos covering the actual story within the book coming up here very, very soon. So stay on the lookout for that. I look forward to every second of it. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.